Hey everybody, Ethan with Ethan's Obsession, and today I thought that I would cover, after a few videos, the biggest obsession in my life so far. This has been my obsession for the past 7 months. It started with one song, and now it has branched into something that I never thought that I would say that I'm obsessed over, but that is, of course, the music of the Beegees. So today, in honor of my biggest obsession to date, we are going to cover the history of the Beegees and why I personally believe that they deserve a spot among the elites such as Paul McCartney and John Lennon. Without further ado, let's get right into it. A little known fact about the Beegees was that they started singing with each other at a very young age. The circumstances surrounding their family's discovery of their talent is actually quite humorous itself. One night, the boys' mother Barbara was going to their room to inform them that a relative was coming over. As she drew closer to the room, she was able to hear music, which she presumed was coming from the radio, and asked them to turn it down so they did not disturb their company. The music she heard that night was actually the boys themselves, with older brother Barry playing the guitar, and twins Robin and Maurice singing harmony. Another interesting fact about the young lads was that they provided the sole revenue for their household at that same very young age. People would come from miles around just to hear the trio sing and perform. They were so determined for their age, in fact, that whereas most children would be found playing with their toys in the yard, the Beegees were in their treehouse practicing. They even told people such as their babysitter that they were going to be famous, which is funny because I said the same thing, but I'm 23 making unpopular YouTube videos instead. As the boys entered teenage years, they began to really hone their craft, coming into their own and bringing us into As aforementioned, the 1960s was when the Beegees really developed as a group. During this decade, they wrote an entire catalog's worth of beautifully composed and very popular music. Their first big break was when they released Spicks and Specks, a collection of their most polished demos at the time. The title song garnered instant success overseas in Europe, but their first number one was a song called Massachusetts, featuring Robin as the lead vocalist. They went on to write many other successful songs, some of which include Words, famously covered by Elvis up until his death, To Love Somebody, originally written for Otis Redding, and I Gotta Get a Message to You, most recently covered by Barry Gibb himself, featuring country music star Keith Urban. This success continued until the late 1960s, when the Taxman came calling, and people began to lose interest in the rich ballad style they were known for. They had to resort to playing supper clubs to pay off their debts, and this continued until their second rise to fame, which of course occurred in the era that cemented their place in popular culture and made them a permanent household name, the 70s, began with the album Mr. Natural. This album was a stark contrast to anything previously done by the group, and was followed up quickly in 1975 with the album Main Course. This album helped define the disco era and laid the groundwork for their most notable accomplishment in public memory, writing the soundtrack to the 1978 movie Saturday Night Fever, starring John Travolta. Notable songs during this time period include Jive Talkin', Spirits Having Flown, Fanny Be Tender, and of course, Stayin' Alive. Songs written by them for others include If I Can't Have You by Yvonne Elliman, and the intro song to the musical known as Grease. Now, as the Beegees soared in popularity, other people sought to emulate it, leading to songs such as the horrendous creation known as Disco Duck. Alright, sorry. I have to go wash my mouth out and throw up after saying that, so just hang on a minute. Hang on. Anyway, with this type of oversaturation, much like the video game market in 1983, people got really pissed and decided to take it out on the only guys not producing terrible music. The Disco Sucks movement was born, records were burned, and death threats were made, ultimately forcing the Beegees to go into hiding until the earth could cool and people could forget about Disco Duck. Now, this is where most people lose track of the Bee Gees. With disco dead, the group fell into obscurity for most of the general public, and most people today solely remember them for staying alive and call it quits. But their story is far from over. The trio still wrote and produced high-quality music, adapting for the changing times. Songs recorded during this era include For Whom the Bell Tolls, not to be confused with For Whom the Bell Tolls by Metallica, Alone, The Story of My Life, and my personal favorite, One. These were all your typical 80s songs, but the more I listened to them, the more I began to like them a lot better than their 70s work. It's actually my favorite era of their music. And nothing negative followed them into the next decade, for the first time in their career actually, and Robbie even went solo for a while, the first time since the 60s in fact, getting some success off of his album entitled How Old Are You? And so the Bee Gees would enter into... Near the end of the Bee Gees' run as a group, they never stopped creating. The end, so to speak, only came because personal tragedy befell the Gibbs. On January 12th, 2003, Maurice tragically passed away. He was in the hospital awaiting surgery on a twisted intestine when it suddenly burst, causing him to have a heart attack. The event created not only heartache, but friction between Barry and Robin. It was said that Robin was extremely determined and still wanted to produce as the Bee Gees, but Barry thought there was no point without Mo, as they called him. Robin would go on to once again create solo music, my personal favorite being the album Magnet. I strongly recommend that you listen to Magnet. Like, it is, I'm going off script, it is amazing, it is fantastic, it's beautiful. Anyway, but he died of cancer, a 2-year battle of cancer in 2012, leaving Barry, the oldest, as the last surviving Bee Gee. And with that, their story ends. Anyway guys, I hope this gave you a little insight into the Bee Gees' music, their long 40-year history, and I hope that you've left with a little bit more appreciation for the group, musically speaking. If you enjoyed this video, please like, comment, and subscribe, as I am looking to make more of this content in the future. If you have any comments, questions, or concerns, you can put them down below. And just for the hell of it, I want to hear your favorite Bee Gees song, so leave that in the comments as well. But anyway, that being said, guys, my name is Ethan with Ethan's Obsessions, and I am signing off. Have a lovely day.